Hi, this is Pastor Thom here. I want to talk with you about our practice of accountability at New Hope Church. Accountability is a key part of discipleship. Dallas Willard, in his book, The Great Omission, charges that few churches actually have a plan for discipleship. When I was growing up, it was just sort of assumed that if you got involved in everything that was going on in the church, discipleship would just sort of happen. And it kind of did, but it kind of didn't either. So when we started New Hope Church, we had a plan and have a plan for discipleship. And our plan is life groups. And in life groups, the plan is that we would do accountability nights once a month, that we would hold each other accountable for doing our spiritual disciplines, and that we would do the 7 steps to freedom, so we would learn how to do spiritual warfare and take our thoughts captive to God, to the Lord. That's our plan, or our method. And life groups are actually part of the discipleship plan for the Methodist Church. The Methodist Church started in 1730 by a couple of Oxford students, John and Charles Wesley, who gathered together a small group of people to hold each other accountable and to go deeper in their Christian lives. Their method was to organize people to follow the practices that would reorientate their lives to Christ. And they had a vow to sobriety, to the prohibition of gambling, to regular attendance at these meetings, and to weekly observance of the Friday fast. So they had a plan, a discipleship plan, and that plan resulted in the Great Awakening, the Great Revival in the United States of America. So when we planted our first church, I thought, what would our plan be to disciple people? Well, life groups, for sure. Spiritual disciplines, for sure. But how are we going to get past the veneer of, oh, I'm fine, I'm good, all these good-looking Christians? How would we go deep and get past the superficiality? How could we genuinely bring our lives under the lordship of Jesus Christ? About that time, some famous pastors have been falling in their moral lives and in their spiritual lives. Lately, we've seen superstar pastors like Carl Lentz from Hillsong, or Ravi Zacharias, or Bruxy Cavey have moral failures. When I was starting out in ministry, it was Jimmy Swaggart and Jimmy and Tammy Baker. In those days, the radio preacher Chuck Swindoll, who's still going strong, urged us as pastors to find accountability groups where these following questions would be reviewed regularly. And here they are. 1, have you been with a woman anywhere in the last week that might have been compromising? 2, have you had any financial affairs that lack integrity? 3, have you exposed yourself to any sexually explicit material? 4, have you spent adequate time this week in prayer and Bible study? 5, have you given priority time to your family? 6, have you fulfilled the mandates of your calling? And then 7, I like that one, have you just lied to me on any of the above? See, accountability is a significant part of spiritual warfare in our lives. We know that when we bring the struggle into the light, it strips it of its power. It takes its power away, because you see, Christians are not people of the darkness. We're children of the light. We don't live in the darkness. Colossians chapter 1, verse 13, Paul the Apostle describes salvation as God's work of rescuing believers from the kingdom of darkness, transferring them into the kingdom of light, the kingdom of his dear Son. So accountability, it's iron sharpening iron. That's what Proverbs chapter 27, verse 17 says. It's one person sharpening another. Accountability is not policing and punishing, but lifting one another up, building one another up, supporting one another. Now, when I read Eugene Peterson's book, Under the Unpredictable Plant, it helped me take the idea of accountability to sort of another level, a bit more personal. Those stock accountability questions are important, and we need to keep doing them, but we also need to get it a bit more personal and ask each other, what is God putting his finger on particularly in your life these days? What is God saying to you specifically these days? You see, God will only empower what he wants to do in your life, what his agenda is. He won't change what you want or what your spouse wants or what your parents want or what your church wants or what your school wants. God's going to change in you what he wants to change in you. So what is it that he's putting his finger on in your life? Now, discerning this isn't easy, but you can learn to discern God's leading and his prompting, to discern his voice in your life. I remember once I was speaking at a crisis pregnancy center, and there were these courageous young ladies who were kept their babies and were being single moms. And I remember meeting one out at the end of the talk outside, and she was having a smoke, and she felt embarrassed that she was still smoking, and like this was a shameful thing. And I thought, I don't know who put that on you, because you already are doing the most courageous thing that God is calling you to do to keep your baby. That other thing might not be on God's radar for a very long time, or even if ever. You've already done the most important thing. So let me encourage you, holding one another accountable is asking more specifically, have you done the last thing that God's called you to do? Because if you haven't obeyed the last thing God's called you to do, why is he going to call you to something else? And what is it that God's putting his finger on in your life? James 4:17 says, if anyone then knows the good that they ought to do and doesn't do it, for them it is a sin. So in all of our life groups, once a month, guys go with the guys and gals go with the gals in separate rooms, and we ask each other the accountability questions. We ask each other, what's God calling you to do? Not to police and to punish, but to build up, to support, and to encourage one another. God bless you guys as you go deep in your discipleship by doing accountability with each other. You are going to find a community that you could have never imagined. God bless you.